Welcome everybody to Cheerios, Rice Krispies, or the Directory of Overseas Summer Jobs. Sherry Schuler-Faust will be presenting this morning. My name is Pamela Thomas, and I will help answer questions if I'm needed, which I probably am not. But Sherry will answer questions at the end of the presentation. So take it away, Sherry.
Hi, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about cereals. And this is the agenda. We're going to go through some things that pertain just to cereals and some things that are similar to monographs. And then at the end of our presentation, we'll see 2 cereal records to look at. Okay, so what is a cereal? Cereals consist of, form a part of, or take place in a series. Cereals can be in forms other than print. However, print is the most common. Cereals are a continuing resource that have no predetermined conclusion and are issued in successive parts, usually having numbering. Cereals are dynamic because they incorporate changes over time. So some of the key points of cataloging cereals are there's many differences between cereal records and monograph records. Monographs are fixed and static, whereas cereals are ongoing. The cereal is described by the first or earliest issue, and the record represents the entire length of the cereal under the same title proper or corporate body. Cereals do not have ISBN numbers, but they do have ISN numbers, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. Rarely will a cereal have a personal author, and each issue will have a designation or numeration. Cereals can be part of a family with earlier titles, later titles, other editions, and other related works. So what's the decision process? When thinking about how to go about cataloging the cereal, you should consider several different possibilities. Number 1, is this the first issue? Number 2, is there a title page, or do I need to look somewhere else for the preferred title or authorized access point for the creator, such as the cover, the caption, the masthead, or other things? Number 3, if you have more than one issue in hand, is there a title change or a corporate body change? And number 4, if there is a change, is the change significant enough to result in a new record? So first we're going to look at titles. So you want to base your title on the title proper from the preferred source, which is the first or earliest issue in hand. If the title has subtitles or other phrase included in the statement of responsibility, included in the statement of responsibility, included in the first subfield B. Not the first one, the only one, sorry. If the title should stand alone, or if it indicates the nature of the title, include the subtitle as well. If the subtitle information is not distinct, but provides non-distinct and provides identification, included in the subfield B. However, subtitles that do not contain the statement of responsibility and do not add understanding to the title or identification should not be added, but they can be recorded in a note. The title, in some cases, may be the authorized access point if there is no creator. So in the example, the subtitle in JSNA News includes the corporate body. The subtitle in the Teddy Bear Artist Annual, Who's Who in Bear Baking, could stand alone as a title. Including the subtitle Rough Guide gives a better understanding as to what the item is, since Australia on its own is extremely broad in Australia, the Rough Guide. So the statement of responsibility. Most cereals do not have personal names as the authorized access point, as editors and compilers may vary. If there's an editor or compiler that is considered significant, they can be recorded in a note. Corporate bodies do have a significant role in serial records and can be recorded in the statement of responsibility if the corporate body is the authorized access point. The basic principle of a corporate body creator is that there are some works that are so closely linked to a corporate body, such as membership directories, annual reports, and things like that, that users are looking for that resource would be more likely to search for them under the body. In these cases, the contents of the resource are generally about the body or the expressed opinions of the body. Often in these situations, the title is not very distinctive. A corporate body is considered the creator of a serial only when the body is responsible for originating, issuing, or causing the serial to be issued. If the corporate body is not chosen as the authorized access point, you can record that in a note. Okay, title added entries. So serials often have various title added entries. You can find these variations on the cover, the caption, the running title, etc. As you can see in this slide, serials can have abbreviations or words spelled differently in the main entry. Using the added title mark tag 246, we can further explain the title proper. In the example of DPS News, adding a 246 first indicator 3 allows us to record the spelled out version of the acronym. In Llewellyn's Magical Almanac, it's given additional access by recording the 246 first indicator 1 with the subfield I to explain the alternate spelling on the volumes containing the alternate spelling. Also in this example, you'll notice the use of the angle brackets. When information is temporary or uncertain, it is enclosed in angle brackets. For more information on added titles, you can see our presentation, the Online with the CMC from December of 2018, entitled, But Wait, There's More, Added Titles. Okay, so changes in a title that require a new record. Since serials tend to go through changes over the years, the cataloger must determine whether or not the change is a major change or a minor change. It's important not to confuse the terms major and minor with important and trivial. Many minor changes are also important in identifying a serial. They simply do not require a new record. If the corporate body changes, mark tags 110 or 130, a new record will be required. So here's some examples of changes in title that do not require a new record. Since these are considered minor changes. They're important to note in the record, but they do not change the scope of the record. Abbreviation versus spelled out, plural versus singular, spelling differences, Arabic versus Roman numerals, dates spelled out versus the number form, and compound word versus two words are all considered minor changes. Here's some more information on changes in title that don't require a new record. There's a rule called the first 5 rule, or it would be 6 if you have an initial article, since we skipped the initial article anyway. You want to count all the words regardless of their significance. And so if you did have an initial article, you'd count 6. If you didn't, you'd count 5. In the first example, on here, handbooks for members, visitors, and kids, with the title changed to handbook for members, visitors, and children. Kids is the 6th word in the title. There is no initial article, so this does not qualify as a title change since the scope of the serial has not changed. Therefore, adding a note for title varies simply, or title varies slightly, is sufficient. If the scope changes, whether it's in the first 5 words or not, will always result in a new record. For example, if you had a record called The Best Bed and Breakfast in the World, and then they decide to change the title to The Best Bed and Breakfast in England, Scotland, and Wales, that will require a new record since the scope changed regardless of how many words are involved. So there's a caveat to title changes. Of course, we have rules and then we break them. If the title changes from an acronym to an initialism to the spelled out, fuller form, or vice versa, it is considered a title change and requires a new record. On the flip side, if a title changes from abbreviation to the spelled out or fuller form, it is not considered a title change. If you are uncertain, consider it a title change and make a new record. So in the DPS News, it became the Department of Public Safety News. That that requires a title change, but in St. Louis News becomes Saint just spelled out. Louis News, that does not require a change. So some other changes that could result in a new record. In some cases, you might have the presence of an addition statement that requires a new record. For example, you might have teacher addition versus student addition. Translation or language change will require a new record if you have the English edition and the French edition. If you have the mode of issuance changes, that could require a new record, that will require a new record. So a multi-part monograph is now published as a print serial. And any differences in the carrier will definitely require a new record as well, such as you have the print serial and the microfilm serial. So there's some unique fields, mark fields that are for serials. For one, we talked about it briefly before, the International Standard Serial Number, or the ISSN, is coded in mark tag 020. I'm sorry, that's ISBN 022, and is the identifying number of the serial that can be authorized by the National Series Data Program. It's 8 digits in 2 groups of 4, separated by a hyphen. The mark tag 310 is the current frequency of the serial. For example, annual, semi-monthly, yearly, biannual, every other, whatever. You get the point. Tag 321 is the former publication frequency. So when a serial changes its frequency of issuance, in the current frequency will be recorded in the 310, and the former frequency will be recorded in the 321. You may not have a mark tag 321 in your record if the frequency has always remained the same. Mark tag 362 contains the beginning and or ending alphabetic, numeric, and or chronological designation of the issues or parts. The date or dates in the 362 may be identical to the date or dates in the fixed field, date 1 and date 2, and uncertain dates can be followed by a question mark. We're going to look at the 588 in a few minutes. So a closer look at the 310, the current publication frequency. Here's some other examples. The dates are included when the beginning date of the current frequency is not the same as the beginning date of the publication, which is reflected in weekly subfield B, April 27, 1984 dash. Therefore, you would also have a mark tag 321. Oftentimes in serials, you will see the angle brackets, which indicate uncertain dates that may not be the earliest or the latest dates. In that last example, you see the angle brackets here. Okay, the 321, or the former publication frequency. This particular one has some capitalization rules. So what you want to do is you want to capitalize the first letter in the first word in the subfield A. If the first 321 begins with a number and mark tag 310 is present, you want to spell out the number in the first 321, but any other 321s use the Arabic number. That's very confusing, and why you do that, I have no idea, but that's the rule. So information must be entered in separate 321 tags, with the order being earliest to most recent. So the 362, dates of publication and our sequential designation. You can repeat the 362 only when one of the fields has a first indicator 0, which is for the formatted version, and the other has a first indicator of 1, unformatted. When both beginning and ending designations are formatted, or both are unformatted, then you record them in a single 362. Okay, now we'll get to the 588 source of description note. So the 588, although no longer unique to serials, is used to convey the source of description and the latest issue consulted. Mark tag 588, first indicator 0, produces a description, source of description, and mark tag 588, first indicator 1, produces the description, latest issue consulted. It's perfectly acceptable, if not encouraged, to add a note of where the title came from in a 588 first indicator 0 note, following the terms of the source of description using a semicolon and stating the source. For example, volume 2, number 2, February 1984, semicolon, title from cover. And the title from cover, the T should be a small t. So now we're going to talk about some 78X fields. The 780, which is the preceding entry. The mark tag 780 may be repeated if there is more than one predecessor. The second indicator dictates the display in the public catalog, and this tag is the link to the predecessor and includes the control number so the cataloger can trace the history of the serial and the changes within the serial. This connection between the records is input by using the Insert from Cited Record option in OCLC connection under the Edit tab. So the 785, which is the succeeding entry, the 785 tag works the same way as the 780, except you're providing information about the immediate successor of the target item. Mark tag 785 can also be repeated if necessary, and it's generated in the same way as mark tag 780 using the Insert from Cited Record under the Edit tab in OCLC. So some other tags that you might see in a serial record. And these are tags, but they're not mark tags, but they're in serials, but they're not unique to serials. The uniform title, whether in the 130 or the 240, you'll see addition statements in serials. You'll see the 515 for numbering peculiarities. And there's also a number of 76X to 78X fields, which identify relationships and linking entries between sources. However, the only ones that we're going to discuss in this presentation is the aforementioned 780 and 785 fields. So this is a look at the variable fields in the record, the Directory of Overseas Summer Jobs. And this publication was thesis publication, which can be noted by the beginning and ending dates in the 264 and the 362. You'll also see this information in the fixed field DTST and date 1 and date 2. So you can see in this record that we do have an ISS number in the 020. There's a uniform title in the 130. We have a 310, which shows the current publication, and we have a 362, which shows the date of publication. There is a 515 in this record, which shows the numbering peculiarities. I have a hard time saying that word. We have a 588 first indicator 0 for the source of description with the title from cover on there. We have a 588 first indicator 1, which shows the latest issue consulted. We also have a 780 for the preceding entry and a 785 for the succeeding entry. And this is a look at the fixed fields for this record. You can see some similarities to a monograph record, but mostly there are differences. So the bibliographic level will be an S for serial. You must code the SL or entry convention, 0 for successive entry or 1 for latest entry. And in RDA, we record the serials based on the successive entry, meaning that a new record is required when there is a title or corporate body change. The SRTP, or type of continuing resource, will be coded as applicable, as will the ENTW, or nature of work. The FREQ, or the frequency, will be coded, as well as the REGL for the regularity. The DTST for type of date publication status will be recorded. If the serial is a current publication, it will have a C in that space for continuing resource currently published, or a D if the serial has ceased publication, which is what ours has. So this is just a small record of another serial. In this record, I just wanted to show you the differences with the publisher and stuff. The publisher changed after 1999 from B.F. Shaw Print Company to Sauk Valley Media. In serial records, a change of publisher does not constitute a new record like it does in monograph records. The first indicator blank is used when a resource is first cataloged. The first indicator 2 is used for the intervening publisher, and the first indicator 3 is for the current or latest publisher. In this case, we just had the first one, it was the first publication, and the latest one. We didn't have a 2 for the intervening one. Since this publication is still being issued, the dates in the 264C have a dash after the date to show that the serial is ongoing. You also see the use of the angle brackets in this record since this information is temporary or uncertain, which is most likely because not all issues were available and the information is based on just the issues that they reviewed. So these are the resources that I used in this presentation. The last one, What is the Serial by Lynn Fields, is a rather old document, probably more than 10 years old, but it had a lot of good information in it. So I did include it on L2 as a PDF if you are interested in that. And this is the member of our team of the CMC. So we are ready for questions if you have any.
Okay, and yeah, just to let you know, Heidi is not on the call with us today, but everybody else, I think, is here. We've got one question, but let me change the setting. So if you do want to ask a question, you are now allowed to unmute yourself if you're in an environment where you can talk. So Jessica asks, so if modern healthcare becomes MH : modern healthcare, that needs a new record.
I would say let's see.
I said yes, but I could be wrong.
I think it does because you're having two separate, you're having MH and then you're having modern healthcare.
Modern healthcare, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why did they change?
Cereals seem to be kind of a hot mess in my opinion.
Sorry. I agree 100%. Yes.
Maybe we need to have some rules, like you are not allowed to do this, this, or this. Jessica said, you got me. Yeah, nobody knows. Does anybody else have any other questions about cereals cataloging? We are still working. This is our final fiscal year online with the CMC. We're still working on our schedule for September 2021 through May of 2022. Personal goal is to get those added to L2 by the end of this month, if not by early June. And then I'll make sure that the word gets out that they're on there and you can start registering for those when you have time. But it takes a little time to get those entered into L2. And Sherry will add this presentation as a PDF on L2 with the slides and the notes after the presentation, so you can access those later. We will also be sending out the link to the recording either later today or tomorrow, hopefully. So does anybody else have any cereal questions? If you don't have a cereal cataloging question, you can ask us any general questions. And like I said, you are now allowed to unmute yourself and ask your question rather than typing in the chat box. Okay, Jody says, for those of us who didn't pre-register for the event, how may we get the materials? It's on L2, so you can just look for today's session and then you can download. But if you didn't register, I will register you anyway, because I have to do that. So if you get this mysterious email, it's because I added you to the L2 registration. You are welcome. Does anybody need the link to L2? I'm assuming that's probably how you logged into the webinar though. If you need the link, just let me know and I'll grab it and paste it in the chat box. So any other serial questions or just general cataloging questions?
Okay.
L
Won't let
Wild
her
says the
unmute.
system will let me unmute. Well, L Wild, I wish you would also put your first and last name in. Let me see if I can find you in the participants and yeah, it's not, oops.
Okay, now I'm unmuted.
Because I clicked a button.
Okay, I am in the process of cleaning up a bunch of records from the Voyager to Alma migration, right? These are reference books, sets of different things that are categorized as serials, but I think they should be books. And I'm confused about the definition of serial versus monograph when it comes to the sets that came out in like a yearly volume, but it's a set of books, not serials, and I'm confused.
So are you thinking that, okay, like give the example of a book of encyclopedias, is it sort of like that? So encyclopedias would not be considered a serial because that's a multi-volume set as opposed to a serial. Is that kind of what you have there?
Could you just give us a title maybe? And could that still be considered maybe like a continuing resource, Sherry? Or would you do it more as a monograph?
Statistical yearbook.
If it's a statistical yearbook that's going to be published each year, that would be considered a serial. So it has the numeration to it and it's ongoing. So that, like you're saying, if it's a statistical yearbook, each year they're going to be publishing, or every other year, whatever the case may be, but it's continued on a continuing basis and in a sort of a, it's not, if it's not haphazardly, like let's say that it was, if it's issued, you know, every other year or something like that, or annual, or whatever the case may be, that's a serial. But if it's issued, like one was issued in 1980, the next one was issued in 1991, the next one was issued in 2000, the next one was issued in 2003, that's not considered a serial. That would be a monograph because there's no pattern or anything to it. There's no consistent pattern, if that makes sense.
So what I'm dealing with are serials, like contemporary literary criticism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I see something from Christy. I think the problem is some people tend to think the term serial equals magazine. And
yeah,
I agree with you that they think that, but serials are, that's a broad
They mean something
term.
else in cataloging land.
Yeah, and magazine is only a small, I mean, yes, a magazine is a quote unquote serial, and it's only a small little branch of what serials are.
Yes. Jody also asked, I know I may be opening up a Pandora's box, but how have conventions changed with RDA? Are there just more of the 3XX fields, or were those already? Okay.
Well, I mean, that stuff, and I think at one point in time, and this may actually be even pre-AACR2, you catalog them in that the SL with a 1, which meant that every time that you didn't have to make a new record every time the title changed, but I think that might have been pre even AACR2.
ACR, yeah.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm not, I'd have to look at the description in OCLC BIB formats, but I'm pretty sure that's what it, because I think the one with the one that we use now with the using the 0, I think it says something like, you know, this is the convention we use now, and the other one was pre something.
Right.
I can't remember now which one it was, but that's the only big RDA change that that's not different than, that's different from maybe, you know, like a monograph or something. I mean, you still have, they always had the 780 and the 785. They always had the, you know, the ones that are particular to
310 was always there, wasn't it? Yeah.
310, 362,
yeah.
Yeah, those were always there. And the only other thing that really changed was the 588, but that was added. That might have been added as an RDA thing. I can't remember when the 588 changed from. Before it was just 588, and then you typed out, you know, title. Why can't I think? The source of title, and you typed out the thing, as opposed to just putting the indicators.
Right. Yeah. Although that might be an OCLC thing too, you know, because
I don't know.
Those are separate things. Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
I mean, OCLC makes changes sometimes because of RDA, but sometimes they are adding fields for, you know, their own reasons that may or may not have anything to do with RDA. Yeah. Okay, Jessica asks, per my head of cataloging, the problem is this. We use the NZ consortial records for our print journals. We can add a note as a local extension, but we cannot choose a new record for the NZ. Our hands are tied as regards to MH:modern healthcare. I don't know what NZ is.
New Zealand? I don't know what NZ, I just think of New Zealand, but I don't. Oh, network zone.
Oh, it's an Alma term.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that, I mean, that. Okay. So, but that's in your own local
consortial,
consortial. That's Yep. So you can do whatever you want there.
Well, but they can't, because they're not allowed to.
Well, that's I mean, if that's their rule, that's their rule. But I mean, if you find that, so you're just, I don't know how, you know, if you bring your records in from OCLC, you just have to follow what. Yeah, I see that's a problem when you can't make changes. But.
Although, I mean, she's saying she can't add a note as a local extension, but I feel like she should be able to add like valid mark fields to the record, but maybe not. I don't know. But that's stinky. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other?
Why they do that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Jessica, Alma is a diva. Okay. Well, maybe Alma needs to become more like a commoner.
Yeah.
Bring it
Alma
on
needs
down.
to open up its mind.
Oh, Christy asked, could you just request a new record from the consortium?
Yeah.
That might be a possibility. Or maybe the consortium has to make some updates to the record. I don't know. Not sure how any of that works. Okay, any other serials cataloging questions? And you can always email us. Our email address is right there on the slide at the top, the cmc@illinoisheartland.org, but I can type it in the chat box because I know you can't copy and paste from slides. And hopefully I typed that correctly. Sorry, just constantly have drainage. It's lovely. So if nobody has any serials cataloging questions, you can ask some general cataloging questions. And I do have the Moodle classes in L2. The Cataloging 3D Objects, Kits and Reality, of course, starts Monday, the 24th. Registration is closed for that, but if you are super interested in taking it, you can email the CMC or me, and I can possibly get you in for that. And then also teaching subject analysis, I think in July, and then RDA for books, and then RDA for AV. But those are all in L2, and you should be able to find them, hopefully.
If L2 was easier to use.
Well, I didn't want to get snarky. Trying to be nice. Just trying. There's my email. Well, nobody has any questions at all? Going once, going twice. Okay, Lori says thanks. All right, well, thank you for attending. And like I said, we'll get the next fiscal year L2 in there, and then you can start registering for that. Erica says, thank you, Sherry. This was helpful. Christy says, thank you. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.